Okay, so we're doing a motion for a speedy trial. There will be nothing speedy about the trial itself. I'm requesting a jury. And there's a few things that are going to be a little bit different, I think, because I don't think that it was well defined of what happened. Frank Milos talks about February, where I had called him. Now, the reason that I called him at home in February was because it was a Friday afternoon, and at 5 o'clock, I had received, I believe it was at 5, I received a call from John Trenzo telling me that Joseph's medical records from the fire department were brought over to Frank Milos. And that was the last time he saw them. So I contacted Frank. Of course, Fridays they get out at, 12, 1 o'clock, something like that. So Frank Milos had already been out of the office for a while. But anyway, I had a conversation with Frank, and he told me that John Trenzo was mistaken. And he quickly got off the phone with me and called John Trenzo. So I think it was, I think I talked to Frank at 9 or a little after, and it was somewhere around 10 o'clock. I have the call activity. I'm not sure off the top of my head, but it was somewhere around almost 10 o'clock at night. John Trenzo called me. And he used the same words that Frank Milos used, saying that he misspoke. Now, when he called me, it came in as a private number. And when I answered it, he said that he had been thinking about me. And he had been thinking. And he misspoke. So, he told me that he brought the medical records over to Frank, and Frank had him return them to the fire department, where they then sat for months on John Trenzo's desk. And then he had somebody shred them. Now, why would he shred something that I was requesting? Frank Milos wasn't supposed to be requesting this. But we do see where Frank Milos, it says the law department requested Joseph's medical records twice. So, number one, Frank Milos' office should not be requesting anyone's medical records. He shouldn't be. So, Monday in February, John Trenzo now changed his story. He now said that he didn't have anybody else shred them. He shredded them himself. Again, I was looking for these records. You brought them to Frank Milos. So, I don't know the exact date it was that, not sure. Frank Milos was going to create a waiver for me to be able to receive medical records for Joseph. The waiver was lengthy. It was ludicrous. It pretty much put me responsible for any and all copies that have been made. Well, we know that the law department requested it twice, so I'd now be responsible for their request that was fulfilled by the fire department. So, you know, John's a little confused. I think that John has a problem. You know, he lies, but he doesn't remember his lies. I had asked him that night if he had spoke with Frank Milos, because he started off the conversation with, I've been thinking about this, and I misspoke. And he does not admit to, I said, did you just talk to Frank Milos? And he's like, no, I did not. Well, the call log shows different, right? So, he's a fucking liar. But anyway, so when we're talking about the trial, I think that John Trentonso is going to need to be called in to clarify what happened there and where the subpoena is that he actually saw, or anyone in the fire department saw, for Frank Milos' office to actually request Joseph's records. And that was the legitimate purpose of calling Frank Milos, was I was looking for any kind of a court document that gave these fools fucking the authority to get into Joseph's file. Now, recently, I received a letter it says from the Pawtucket Fire Department. It's all about the fire department. I think I've mentioned that there's a disturbing line in there that says if you complain, you won't be retaliated against, or don't worry, you won't be retaliated against. Why would that even be in there? Like, that's crazy. That's silly, right? Like, why would, I mean, what? Why would that even be a thought? That if you complain about something that you'd be retaliated against. But, that's the thing with me, right? When I complain, I get retaliated against. But, okay. So we're talking about the jury trial, because this was very significant. I was arrested for 2 counts. One was cyberstalking, which I'm blind. And there was no proof of that. And the second one is crank, obscene, vulgar, whatever, fucking phone calls. But anyway, there were a few things in there. I mean, we'll go over quickly that Frank Milos cannot testify how somebody else feels about something. That should have been stricken. That he was actually able to mention how his wife feels. So I would like her to be brought in for her to say how she felt about me asking for 3 documents from Frank Milos. So that's that. I mean, if you're going to be able to talk about how someone feels, I believe that she should be in the courtroom and get on the stand and say how she felt about it. If she was actually some sort of victim in this, then yeah, I want her on the stand for her to say how she felt about me calling for 3 documents when her husband had dropped 104 phone calls for requests of these documents. So that's the first. Well, no, so now we're up to 2 people, right? So we're going to have John Trentonso come in, and we're going to have Frank Milos' wife come in, because I don't think that he should be able to say how his wife feels. Frank Milos was unaware of them sending or charging $75 for my son's privacy. So that was a request from Kate Peter from Turtle Boy Sports for everything on Joseph and appers that I had sent in. So Lizette Gomes sent a $75 cost letter. So from his office, from Frank's office, he's well aware of this, right? So she sends it, a $75 cost letter to Kate Peter from Turtle Boy Sports. So we need to call Lizette in, because there was some confusion about a $75 cost for Joseph's privacy. So we got to bring Lizette in, because that needs to be clarified. Anything that I spoke of needs to be addressed. He was also unaware or not sure of the Pawtucket Police Department's connection with Turtle Boy Sports. So we need to bring in the chief, Frank Milos has paperwork that he sent me of the involvement of the Pawtucket Police with Turtle Boy. And, I'm thinking Don Grebian, because he told me to stay safe. So he was well aware of it. Sean Driscoll. I know that LaValle from the state police, he met with us. I know that Sean Linus no longer works for the Attorney General's office, but I think that he's very well aware of the Pawtucket Police involvement with the Turtle Boy Sports situation. The council was aware. I think we need to bring everybody in, because Frank's unsure about the Turtle Boy Sports. It was the Attorney General's office didn't want Turtle Boy Sports mentioned, but if we're mentioning things that are in the calls, we're going to mention all of it, right? We're going to mention the Turtle Boy Sports. And there's a lot of vagueness with Frank Milos' answers. Like, he said that we talked about the Turtle Boy Sports. When did we have a discussion on it? He didn't tell me anything other than sending me the supplemental email, the supplemental reply 3 years later that proves that James Bano was actually calling for Turtle Boy Sports. I think it's funny that the cyber stalking was the one that went away, because it was just in federal court about the Pawtucket Police, and Craig Letourneau named the names of the people that were involved with the social media monitoring. I mean, we can call it social media monitoring, we can call it cyber stalking, we can call it whatever you want. There were a few messages saying that they were keeping an eye on us. So I mean, it's all relevant, I think, right? If we're gonna talk about it, let's talk about it. Again, I'm asking for a speedy trial. This will be anything but speedy this time. They had questioned, why my attorney was asking, and, of course, why was this so important to me? Well, it was important to me because Frank Milos has released private information on Joseph to the media. Things that he won't release ever again because he learned his fucking lesson. But, I can't trust him, nor does he have any rights to anything that as it relates to Joseph's medical, including his autopsy, Frank, in case, you're listening. I mean, my son's information was put in somebody else's file. And that's from DeSisto's office. That's Katie Hilton. Yeah, from DeSisto's office. Took stuff from a police report that has inaccurate information in it and put it into somebody else's file. And the funny thing is, and I think that I've mentioned this before, that I had called Frank to let him know that we finally know what time Joseph died. And he's like, you do? And I said, yeah. I said, Katie Hilton said that, this is when he died. In somebody else's court case. It has nothing to do with my son. Yet again, inaccurate information, but it's being passed around. I mean, it's being used in other court cases. This is, so, that's, but, I want to make sure that we don't leave any stone unturned, because we're going to see how this plays out. And I've already called the media to show up. So I think that it's going to be probably long, because I'm thinking if we have Frank Milos on the stand and we have his wife on the stand, he did mention his son. I don't know if, we don't need to get his son involved. Tina, Don Grabian, Sean Driscoll, the state police, the attorney general's office. Because it encompasses everything, because if we're going to answer questions, we need to make sure that we're being honest, right? Let's be honest. And when you say you're unsure of a $75 cost selling my son's information, and you think that that's not true, I have the cost letter that Lizette sent out. I think that we're going to have to call Nicole Farias in, Jasmine Marks in, Lizette Combs I had mentioned, Dan McKiernan, because even Nicole Farias said that they didn't have Joseph's medical information, but it was Nicole Farias that sent me the information saying that they have my son's information. That should have never been released out of the Pawtucket Police Department. It shouldn't be in an email. It should have been removed from an email so that it couldn't be accessed. But this is the way that Pawtucket rolls. So it's going to be a little bit more in depth. And as we move up, if it ends up to be in Supreme Court, I think that we need to make sure that everybody understands that this has been an ongoing problem with Joseph's privacy being violated, and Frank Milos. And, Frank Milos, he says that he answered me. He answered me. The answer that he gave me, in which I can help him out with that, because the answer he gave me was he was not going to tell me who in the Pawtucket Police Department was releasing my son's private medical information, because they're his client. They're his client. So people can break the law as long as they're his client. I get it, right, Frank? You got to cover up. But I think that there's a lot of things that I have issue with how he answered, and I think that we need to make sure that everything is clarified for those jury members, for the media, for everybody, to make sure that they know exactly what happened here and why. For the last year and a half, more than a year and a half now, I was even, oh, wait a minute, I forgot. We're going to call Carrie Hermansky in too, for her phone call to me, letting me know that I was going to be transported to the hospital, that they weren't going to call a bail bondsman for me, and that I was going to wear handcuffs. We want to make sure that we get Carrie in there, because I think that that's like an important part of this, that it definitely was a retaliation thing. It was abusive process. Oh, and by the way, Frank, I think you're going to be asked, how many times have you prosecuted somebody for crank phone calls that had actually gone into a jail cell? We got to find that out too. Like, how often does that happen? I think that we have quite a bit to go over, because you wanted this malicious prosecution. You wanted it. You asked for it. And if we're going to do this, we're going to do it big, right? We're going to do it big. We might even ask if there's been any other allegations against Mrs. Farinelli that were unfounded, like the state police, because I think that that's important. That, this was something that, everybody was looking forward to, but it's going to be seen for what it is, which is malicious prosecution and abusive process. So just so everybody knows, we're moving forward. March 30th. Motion for speedy trial. I look forward to it. I look forward to exposing it all. And when you ask for something, you better make sure that you're ready for what you get. All right. Anyway, it's going to be pretty interesting. As we move up, we call more people in. All right. Hope you all have a great day. I have some stuff to get done, and I'll update soon.